The young Generation Z doesn't really understand generational psychology and how it affects every generation going forward. Generation Z, a lot of these young adult kids are just cutting their parents off for no reason whatsoever. And I'm not referring to real cases of abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, anything like that. I am talking about the ones that are just cutting off their parents, not even giving a reason, not trying to sit down and talk about it, not addressing the situation at all. And maybe it's because they're afraid of conflict. And so it's easier for them just to walk away than to sit down and have a conversation. But what they don't comprehend is generational psychology and how it affects. Let me explain. See, me and my mother, I love my mother dearly. But there were some things that she did in my childhood that I told myself when I became a parent I was going to do differently. Okay, and that doesn't mean I hated her. It doesn't mean I'm going to never speak to her again. It's just I learned by the things that she did, it changed the way I would parent. Okay, for example, I was a clumsy child, and I would break things a lot. And she would always yell at me and for breaking something, And it wasn't purposefully done. So when I had my daughter, I remember when she would break something, she would kind of look at me like she thought she was going to be in trouble. And I would simply look at her and say, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody breaks stuff. Just get a broom and clean it up. You know what I mean? But as much as me and my mom argued, and we would argue, my daughter even saw one of our huge arguments, where basically she got angry and kicked me out of the house, and I left. But by the time I got home, me and her were apologizing to each other, saying we loved each other. That's what you do. You get into an argument because you have a disagreement, but then you realize this is your mother or this is your daughter, and you make up. It was an argument. Just like you're going to get in an argument with your spouse. You may get in arguments with coworkers at work, but you don't quit, you don't leave, you don't abandon them, you don't go without talking to them. You work it out. You talk about it. And so this is the difference between my Generation X and my daughter's Generation Z, is we talked about it. We worked it out. We discussed it. But then it would be okay. And she would tell me what she felt. And she would explain how she was raised. And this is generational psychology. And so let me go into that, okay? My mother was from the silent generation. But let's go back to her parents. Her parents were the greatest generation, if you can believe that. They had the Great Depression. They had World War II. They had massive poverty and instability, hard labor, rationing of food, strict social norms. They often described as hardworking, sacrificial, duty-driven, resilient, patriotic, and extremely practical. They were emotionally reserved. They were strict, structured, predictable. They were very adult-centered households. Children were expected to blend in quietly and not be the focus. Kids had real chores, real duties, and were expected to contribute. Their affection was only shown through sacrifice, not by words or loving or hugging or emotions. They rarely said, I love you. They weren't involved in homework or going to school activities. Their emotional needs were private. They didn't talk about it. Chores were heavy. My mother had to do stuff like farming, cooking, cleaning, helping raise siblings. Strong responsibility, but emotional distance. My mom growing up had little time for her feelings. Crying didn't fix anything. Be grateful, they said. Children should be seen, not heard. Life is hard, deal with it. That's how my mother grew up. That's the way her parents parented. So when my mother parented me, how was I? How was I parented by my mother? I was not ever really told I was loved. She never said I love you and hugged me when I was younger. She does now, but she didn't back then. Little emotional support, no help with homework, being left outside to play all day. But hey, we loved that in the 80s. Remember that? We didn't come in till the lights went off. It was great to me, except for the lack of love and emotional support. I never attended school activities, limited affection or connection. Almost the exact same as the way that she was raised, but I didn't have the hard chores or anything. I had chores, but it wasn't farming. You know what I mean? It wasn't stuff like that. So with that being said, when I went to parent, I took the things I didn't like about what I was taught or not taught, and I tried to incorporate them into the way I raised my daughter. Now, I didn't give her any chores at all, and that was probably a huge mistake on my part. But to be honest with you, she had a lot of issues. And so, she had asthma and things like that. And I would ask her to clean her room, but she wouldn't. We'd argue about it, but I always ended up cleaning it. That was my mistake, that I would do everything, and she never gave anything. I was particularly wanting her to make A's and B's in school. I think I only spanked her one time. I never really punished her, which I probably should have. But I did tell her I loved her every day. And because she had some issues early in life and struggled, because she was born a preemie, 3 months early, 27 weeks, 2 pounds, came home 3 months later on a heart monitor. She had asthma. She was a little developmentally behind. She had ADHD. She struggled in school until 9th grade when she took off. So I was side by side with her, helping her with her homework every night until 9th grade. But I told her I loved her every day. I was a big hugger. And I told her how proud I was of her. I mean, I'm sure I made mistakes. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't abusive. I wasn't toxic by any means. Now, she's going to grow up and raise her children, and she'll do some changes. Maybe she'll give them chores and hold them accountable. Maybe she'll let them play outside more. See, you got to understand, when my daughter grew up, there was internet the internet, VHS, Xbox, video games. There are child predators in my neighborhood. The amount of child predators increased dramatically. I don't even remember child predators in my generation. And one of the other things I incorporated in my parenting was taking my daughter on a lot of vacations. See, when I grew up, I went to my grandma's a lot, but on a vacation, I can only remember maybe 1 or 2 vacations out of my whole childhood. Disney World, and then some camping expeditions that we went on. But my daughter, I took her twice a year, every spring break and every summer break. I would take her to the beach for a week. She could take a friend. When she got older, it was cruises and rock and roll concerts. I gave her tons of clothes. She had more clothes than Britney Spears, more makeup than Madonna. I kind of spoiled her rotten. I just wanted my daughter to have, more stuff than I did. I think that's every parent's dream. Basically, what I'm saying is there's a whole generational psychology. And when Generation Z parents their kids, it's going to be different. They're going to make mistakes. And then their kids are going to learn from those mistakes. Like, for example, my period. My mother never told me about my period or the birds and the bees. So I made sure my daughter knew about that stuff, because I didn't want her to be shocked being at school one day and prepared for her period or whatever. So it's just generational. You learn from the way you were raised, and you make changes to the way you raise your children, and it goes on, and people are going to make mistakes. Nobody's ever perfect. But by no means, if you're not toxic or abusive, should you be completely silenced. I mean, no matter what, in any relationship, marriage, work, family, communication is everything. It's everything. If you stop communication, that doesn't solve a damn thing. Nothing. It may bring you a little bit less stress because you don't have to have any conflicts in life. But are you really never going to have any conflicts in life?